Separate than the city's operating budget is the FY21 through 25 capital plan. The capital plan covers major construction projects and stretches over a 5-year period to allow the city to plan, design, and build complex projects across every neighborhood in the city. The city capital plan is our plan to maintain our inventory of assets like roads, bridges, schools, and parks. The city uses a combination of general obligation bonds and federal and state grants to fund the plan. The capital plan invests consistent with the Imagine Boston 2030 plan and the umbrella plans that fall underneath it, like BuildBPS, Go Boston 2030, and many more. For this year, 90% of the capital plan is invested consistent with the IB 2030 priorities. Since FY14, the city has grown the size of the capital plan by over $1 billion, or 70%. This has come through new investments in schools, new neighborhood libraries and parks, and new transportation infrastructure throughout the city. The city has also increased the number of grants it has received through more access to the state school building authority. The city is starting to see the impact of planning efforts through a considerable amount of new projects moving into design and construction phases. For FY21 through 25, the city is growing the capital plan to reflect these projects and will reach the $3 billion threshold for the first time. On this chart, you will see the breakdown of the entire capital plan by Imagine Boston 2030 category. The city will spend about 30% of our capital on roads, bridges, and transportation, about 24% on schools, about 10% on public safety, about 12% on parks and open space projects, and the rest spread out on various different departments. The FY21 to 25 plan proposes to add $538 million in new general obligation funding over the next 5 years. Of that new funding, $139 million is for schools, or about 30% of all new funding. $144 million, or about 27%, goes towards streets. $79 million, or 14%, goes towards public safety. $55 million goes towards health and human services. $57 million goes towards parks, the environment, and open space. And $18 million goes towards civic spaces. When building the capital plan, the city has a 7% cap on debt service as a percent of the city's operating budget. As you can see here, our planned borrowing increases over the next few years closer to 7%. The city has benefited from a AAA bond rating, and we were able to add significant amount of new funding and still live within that debt limit. Now moving on to some of our major new capital investments. This does not include everything in the plan, but highlights some of the major new projects or funding changes. Beginning with $140 million in new capital for BPS that continues the promise of the $1 billion BuildBPS program and more. The new funding in the plan includes $12 million for the Boston Arts Academy, which is under construction and set to open for classes in 2021. It includes $500,000 to support the initial K-6 expansions happening over the next few years, and $2.5 million for a grade 7 through 12 master plan. We are also increasing our major projects reserve by $77 million up to $230 million total. This is where we fund major projects that are coming down the pipeline, including JQUS, the Carter School, and much more. In addition to the $1 billion BuildBPS plan, the FY20 to 25 capital plan recommits to some core maintenance work that will touch as many schools as possible in the coming years. This includes $7 million for kitchens phase 3, $10 million for bathroom renovations, $10.5 million for drinking water upgrades. We will also utilize the Renew Boston Trust and capital maintenance accounts in schools for $20 million each. We also have smaller projects like entryways, radiators, and new fire systems. Overall, this is a significant investment on top of the $1 billion BuildBPS investment and projects we can move forward on quickly that will make major impacts on schools sooner. Moving past schools, the second biggest area of increase is transportation projects for about $112 million in new funding. Most of the new programs in this year's plan aim to improve the state of good repair for all different types of assets like ramps, roads, slow streets, and other Vision Zero programs. They include $14 million for new dedicated bus lanes, $9 million per year for new pedestrian ramps that will allow the city to reach a state of good repair and full ADA compliance by 2030, This investment will also almost double the number of ramps the city reconstructs every year, from about 900 to more than 1,600. It includes $1 million for blue bikes to add 11 new stations and expand the network. It includes $9 million for neighborhood slow streets. It includes $1.5 million for crosswalks and lane markings in order to maintain a state of good repair and improve roadway safety for all users. And finally, $1 million to help support streetlight asset management and stray voltage assessments, which will improve resident safety and help us manage our inventory. Outside of the road projects, another major transportation investment we want to highlight is the Northern Avenue Bridge. Currently, we have a $46 million city capital project for that project. The FY21 to 25 plan assumes adding an additional $54 million for $100 million total. This will allow the city to build a transformative multimodal bridge that prioritizes pedestrians and shared public space on the waterfront. This Boston Bold design will preserve the historic elements of the former bridge and create a public pavilion that will create a vibrant public space that can be programmed. And finally, the plan will move this project into design and construction over the coming year. Moving on to climate resiliency. Last year, the city committed to investing 10% of all new capital funding towards climate resilience. In FY20, we exceeded that mark in the capital plan through investments in climate resilient parks and public infrastructure. This year, we will again exceed 10%, and the signature projects include the Curley Community Center and its $4 million in resilient aspects, a new phase of the Renew Boston Trust, and a new climate resilience fund that will be used to help fund resilient components of other projects throughout the city. Touching quickly on parks projects with new funding, the capital plan has over 30 projects already in the works across the city, but some of the major new projects include $7 million for a new Back Bay Fens and Millennium Park Pathways project, new funding to renovate Malcolm X Park and Jeep Jones Park. We also have expanded programs to install safety surfacing in playgrounds and double our annual street tree budget to $2.5 million. Moving on to some of our major community and municipal buildings, the FY21 through 25 plan includes $15 million to increase the BCYF Curley Community Center budget to cover both the increased scope and the resilient efforts included in the final design. The capital plan will also include new funding for the $5.6 million East Boston Senior Center currently underway. This was only a small sampling of all the major capital projects throughout the city, and we would encourage you to visit budget.boston.gov and access our capital map, where you can search for any address and find all the different types of capital projects going on in your neighborhood. This concludes the capital budget portion of the video. To learn more about the budget, including videos, featured analysis, and our open data portal, please visit our website at budget.boston.gov. Thank you.